Welcome back to the Deep Dive. So, if you are one of the millions of Americans with federal student debt, you probably know the feeling.
Oh, yeah.
That feeling that the repayment system is less of an organized plan and more like a
Mm.
bureaucratic maze made of jargon.
A maze is a good word for it.
Yeah. Today, we are grabbing the machete. We're cutting right through all of that complexity. We're doing a deep dive into the single most important tool for managing that debt: income-driven repayment, or IDR.
It is truly a legislative thicket, and honestly, understanding it is it's non-negotiable for borrowers today.
Right.
We're talking about the big umbrella term that covers programs like IBR, PYE, ICR, and of course the big new one, SC.
The one that's been in the news so much.
Exactly, and all these plans are designed to do one thing: adjust your monthly payments based on your actual financial reality, your income, your family size, instead of just treating your debt as this fixed, immovable number.
And that difference is just so critical. So our mission here is pretty clear. We've gone through a mountain of source materials.
Sure.
We've analyzed the specific rules, the political history, and maybe most importantly, the extreme administrative volatility and all the legal challenges that have really defined IDR, especially in the last year or so through 2024 and 2025.
Yeah, our sources give us a really detailed blueprint of how these plans are supposed to work.
Supposed to, yeah.
But they also chronicle the absolute turmoil, the legal blockades, the application freezes, the policy whiplash. It's been a mess.
So we're here to synthesize all of that. We want you, the listener, to walk away from this really understanding the core financial mechanics, but also the political pressures that are reshaping this entire system, like in real time.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's start at the foundation. Because to get IDR, you have to understand one calculation above all else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the definition of discretionary income. This formula is basically the engine for the whole system, right?
Mm-hmm.
It determines the pool of money the government looks at to figure out your payment. So, what is it?
Right. So discretionary income in the world of IDR is basically the amount of money you earn that the government says is, available for non-essential things after they account for your basic needs.
Okay, and that calculation starts with your adjusted gross income, your AGI.
Yes. And we should probably pause on that for a second, because AGI is a term we throw around all the time, but...
Not everyone lives and breathes their tax forms.
Exactly. So your AGI is your total income minus certain specific deductions. Things like contributions you make to a 401k or even some of the student loan interest you pay.
So it's the number the IRS uses after those first few things are taken off the top.
Precisely. It represents your core taxable income, which is why it's the standard verifiable number they use for all these IDR calculations.
Okay, so we take the AGI, then what?
Then you subtract a protected amount of money, a floor. And that floor is based on the federal poverty level for your family size. The money you earn above that floor is what they consider discretionary.
And right there, that's where the policy choices really hit the wallet, isn't it?
That is the entire ballgame. Because historically, for the older plans like IBR and PAYE, that protected income floor, the amount you got to keep, no questions asked, was set at 150% of the federal poverty level.
150%. So that gave you a bit of a buffer, a baseline safety net.
It did. But the new SVE plan, this is where things really changed. It completely rewrote that part of the equation.
And this is where the savings really start to show up for people.
It is the single biggest game changer. Under SVE, discretionary income is now defined as income above a much, much higher floor, 225% of the federal poverty level.
Okay, so let's put some real numbers on that. That's a 75 percentage point jump. Why does raising that floor matter so much?
Well, because it drastically shrinks the amount of your income that's considered discretionary.
You're protecting more of your money from the calculation.
Exactly. So let's use an example. In 2024, the federal poverty guideline for a single person was around $15,060.
Okay. So under that old 150% rule, you would get to protect, what is that, about $22,590 of your income.
Right. And anything you earned above that number was fair game. It went into the pot that they'd take a percentage of for your payment.
Got it.
But under the new SVE plan, with its 225% rule, that same single person now protects about $33,885 of their income.
Wow.
That's over $11,000 more of your income. That is just shielded. It's invisible to the payment calculation.
And if your payment is just a percentage of that discretionary amount and you just shrank that amount by
Your
$11,000.
payment plummets. I mean, for millions of people, it goes straight to zero.
Yeah.
The shift from 150% to 225% is, without a doubt, the most powerful policy tool they've used to lower monthly payments.
It's like the government is acknowledging that the old poverty metrics were, well, outdated.
Absolutely. It's a recognition that the cost of living, especially for things like housing, has just completely outpaced those old benchmarks. Raising that threshold is like giving a massive financial shield to low and middle income borrowers.
Okay, so that's the core formula. But beyond that, most IDR plans also have some sort of cap, right? People worry that if their income goes up, their payment will suddenly become unaffordable.
Yes, and this is a really critical safeguard in the older plans.
Like IDR and PAYE?
Exactly. A key feature of both was a payment ceiling. So yes, your payment could go up if your income went up, but it could never exceed the amount you would have paid under the standard 10-year repayment plan.
So you were never punished for enrolling in IDR.
Right. It was a safety net. If your income really recovered, you wouldn't end up paying more than you would have if you just stuck with the standard plan from day one.
That seems logical,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like I remember a plan where that wasn't the case, where your payment could actually go higher than the standard amount.
You're right, and it really shows you how the policy goals can shift. The now abolished REPAYE plan, which Say replaced, was unique. For high-income borrowers, payments under REPAYE could be higher than the 10-year standard amount.
So it had no cap.
It had no cap, which, made it less attractive for people like doctors or lawyers who had huge debt but also expected their income to grow a lot. And that's exactly why, when they designed SAVE-E, they made sure to bring that payment ceiling back.
It's fascinating. The whole policy battle really just boils down to two numbers. That poverty threshold, 150 versus 225, and whether or not there's a cap.
That's it. If you understand those two mechanics, you can understand the entire system.
Okay, so with that foundation, I think we can finally tackle the alphabet soup itself.
Let's do it.
We've laid the groundwork. Now for the real headache. Trying to tell the difference between the three big legacy plans, ICR, IBR, and PAYE. I mean, a borrower can often qualify for more than one, and comparing them is tough.
It is. You have to look at the payment percentage, the forgiveness timeline, and crucially the eligibility rules, which can be really tricky.
So where do we start?
We have to start with the oldest one, the Income-Contingent Repayment Plan, ICR.
The original.
The granddaddy of them all, yeah. It came out of the Clinton administration back in 1994. It was the first time the government really established the principle that your payment should change with your income.
So what are the actual mechanics? How is the payment calculated under ICR?
It's the lesser of two different options. The first is 20% of your discretionary income. And remember, ICR uses that older, less generous 150% poverty threshold.
20%. That's the highest percentage of any of these plans.
It is. The other option is a fixed payment based on a 12-year repayment plan, but that's also adjusted for your income. But yeah, that 20% figure is the one that usually stands out.
So for most people who can qualify for something else, ICR is probably the least attractive option, financially speaking.
Generally, yes. It's less generous, but ICR's real value today is its accessibility. It has the fewest eligibility requirements of any IDR plan. You just need to have an eligible loan. You don't have to prove a financial need or meet some weird borrowing timeline.
It's this fallback plan.
It's the necessary fallback, especially for borrowers with one specific, really tricky type of loan.
And that would be parent PLUS loans.
Exactly. These are the loans parents take out for their kids, and they are notoriously locked out of most IDR plans.
But not ICR.
This is the vital loophole. Parent PLUS loans are generally ineligible for IDR, but UT, you can consolidate a Parent PLUS loan into a direct consolidation loan, and that new consolidated loan is eligible for the ICR plan.
So it's the only way for those parents to get on any kind of income-driven path.
It's the only way. It might not be the best deal, but for those borrowers, it's often the only deal on the table.
Okay, so let's move forward in time to IBR, Income-Based Repayment. This one came out in 2007. The payment percentage goes down, but it seems like the complexity just goes way up.
It skyrockets. IBR introduces this really sharp split based on a timeline, and it defines your entire experience with the plan.
What's the split?
It all depends on whether you are considered a new borrower on or after July 1st, 2014.
Okay, and I'm guessing new borrower has a very specific technical definition.
Oh, it does. It means you had no outstanding balance on any other federal student loan when you took out a new loan on or after that date.
Whoa, wait. So if I had a tiny loan from, say, 2012, and then I went back to grad school and took out a huge loan in 2015, I'm not a new borrower.
Correct. You're not. You get grandfathered into the older, less favorable IBR terms, even if 99% of your debt came after that 2014 date.
That feels like a real gotcha.
It is a critical trapdoor. It trips up a lot of people.
Okay, so let's break down the two tiers. What are the terms for the people who are genuinely new borrowers?
If you are a new borrower on or after July 1st, 2014, your terms are better. Your payments are 10% of discretionary income, and you get forgiveness after 20 years of payments.
And for everyone else, the older borrowers, or the people caught in that trap door.
For them, the older borrowers, the payment is higher 15% of discretionary income, and forgiveness takes longer. It's granted after 25 years of qualifying payments.
So you pay more for longer.
You pay more for longer. It's a policy that basically penalizes people who have been in debt continuously for a long time.
Why that date? July 1st, 2014. It sounds so
Right.
arbitrary. What was the thinking behind creating two different versions of IBR?
It was really about managing the cost of the program. They wanted to offer a better deal to the next wave of students, but they didn't want to retroactively apply those better terms and the higher costs to the government, to all the old debt that was already out there. It was a way to improve the program going forward without breaking the bank on the past.
And what about eligibility for IBR? It's not as open as ICR, is it?
No, it has a gatekeeper. You have to demonstrate a need. It's basically a debt-to-income test. You have to show that your calculated IBR payment would actually be lower than what you'd pay on the standard 10-year plan.
So if your income is too high relative to your debt, you might not even qualify for IBR.
Exactly. You could be pushed back into a standard plan.
And let me check back in on the parent-fill US caveat. Can you consolidate a parent-fill US loan to get into IBR?
No, absolutely not. The sources are very clear on this. Parent PLUS loans are ineligible for IBR, and unlike ICR, consolidation does not help.
So that door is firmly shut.
It is. It really funnels those parent borrowers back toward that ICR plan we just talked about.
Okay, so that brings us to the last of the legacy plans, PYE, or Pay As You Earn, another Obama-era plan.
Right, and PAYE offered really good terms, payments at 10% of discretionary income, and it brought back that all-important cap.
The one that ensures your payment never exceeds the 10-year standard amount.
Exactly. For a lot of borrowers, that cap made it a better option than REPAYE, which didn't have one.
But there's always a but. The trade-off for those good terms seems to be the absolute strictest eligibility rules we've seen yet.
It is extremely restrictive. It feels like it was designed for a very, very narrow slice of borrowers.
What are the rules?
You have to hit two separate date requirements. First, you have to be a new borrower as of October 1st, 2007, meaning no federal loan balance before that date. And second, you must have received a direct loan disbursement on or after October 1st, 2011.
So you need to meet both of those. If you meet the 2011 rule but had a tiny loan back in 2006, you're out.
You're out. It's designed to exclude anyone who has been borrowing continuously for a long time. It was clearly meant to limit the program's cost by targeting only the freshest debt.
And I'm going to guess parent PLUS loans are, once again, out of luck.
Once again, locked out, ineligible, and consolidation can't get you in. We have to keep hammering this parent PLUS point because it is the single biggest roadblock for parent borrowers and a huge source of confusion.
Okay, so that's the old guard, a confusing mess of different rules and dates.
It is.
Now, let's pivot to what's happening right now. The big overhaul that replaced REPAYE, the Saving on a Valuable Education, or SAVE-E plan.
Right. This was the latest and by far most generous attempt to fix federal loan repayment.
And it was an immediate change for a lot of people, right?
It was. If you were already on the old REPAYE plan, you were automatically moved over to SAVE. And really importantly, all your past payments under REPAYE counted toward forgiveness under the new ESTAVI rules.
No starting over.
No starting over.
So one of the biggest features, and the one that got the most positive attention, was how SAVE deals with interest.
Yeah.
It tackles this awful problem of negative amortization.
Yes. And negative amortization is it's a soul-crushing part of student loans. It's when your monthly payment is so low that it doesn't even cover the interest that's piling up.
So you're making payments every single month, but your loan balance just keeps going up.
Exactly. It's a psychological and financial nightmare. Under SAVE, that is basically eliminated. The policy guarantees that if your required payment doesn't cover the full amount of the interest, the government just covers the rest.
Your loan balance will never go up as long as you're making your required payment.
That is the explicit promise. The goal is to make sure loans never grow because of unpaid interest. And this is a huge step up from REPAYE, which only covered half of the unpaid interest. SAVE covers all of it.
And that part of the plan seems to be pretty stable, legally speaking.
It does. It's one of the least challenged features, and it's been a revolutionary change for low-income borrowers.
Okay, what about the payment caps? We see a split between undergrad and grad school debt.
We do. For loans that are only from undergraduate study, the payments are set at 10% of that new, much smaller discretionary income amount, the income above 225% of the poverty line.
Okay.
If you have a mix of undergrad and grad loans, your payment is a weighted average somewhere between 5% and 10%.
Now wait, you said 5%? I definitely remember a big push to make the payment for undergrad loans just 5%. What happened with that?
You remember correctly. That was a huge part of the original SAVE proposal, and it would have made undergraduate debt repayment even faster and cheaper. But our sources confirmed that specific proposal to lower the undergrad payment to just 5% is currently blocked by a preliminary injunction. It's one of the key parts of the plan that's stuck in the courts.
So another big hurdle for borrowers has always been the paperwork. Having to recertify your income and family size every single year. Did SAVE make that any easier?
It made huge strides. Under SAVE, you can consent to have the IRS just automatically report your adjusted gross income directly to the Department of Education.
From your tax returns.
From your tax returns, exactly. It's a small change, but it's massive because it dramatically reduces the chance that you'll miss a deadline and get kicked off the plan and have your payment spike.
And what about for married borrowers? The strategy of filing taxes separately to lower your payment.
That's another big win in SAVE. Under a lot of the old plans, sometimes your spouse's income would still be counted, even if you filed separately. Under SAVE, if you file separately, your spouse's income is never counted. End of story.
So it gives married borrowers a lot more control.
A ton more control. It's a huge benefit.
But of course, the SAVE plan wasn't just about lower payments. It also proposed some really radical changes to forgiveness, right? Especially for people with smaller loan balances.
It did. The key proposal was, well, it was targeted relief. Forgiveness for anyone with an original loan balance of just $12,000 after only 10 years of payments.
10 years. That's half the normal time.
Or even less. I mean, the standard is 20 or 25 years. This was designed to quickly clear the books for millions of people, like community college graduates, and let them get on with their lives.
And it was a sliding scale, wasn't it, based on your original loan amount?
Exactly. For every extra $1,000 you borrowed above that initial $12,000, you'd add one more year of payments. But it's still capped out at 20 years for undergrad and 25 for grad loans. It was just a way to provide much faster relief for people with smaller to medium-sized debts.
But as you've hinted, this is where the legal challenges really came in. What happened in 2024 and 2025 to block these key features?
The whole legal landscape right now is it's defined by instability. Our sources point to a February 18th, 2025 ruling by a U.S. appeals court that was part of freezing the program.
And what was the argument against it? Why did the courts agree to block it?
The argument really boils down to executive overreach. Opponents argue that these changes, especially the 5% payment and the fast forgiveness, were so big and so costly that they were basically creating a new law.
And that's something only Congress can do.
That's the core of their argument, that the Department of Education doesn't have the authority under the existing Higher Education Act to make such massive changes without explicit approval from Congress.
And the courts, at least for now, have agreed.
For now, yes. A preliminary injunction from back on June 24, 2024, specifically blocked both the 5% payment rule and that entire accelerated forgiveness plan. So those parts of SAVE are just stalled, creating huge uncertainty for borrowers who were banking on them.
And to make things worse, interest started piling up again for people on the SAVE plan.
Yes. The sources confirm that interest resumed on August 1st, 2025, right in the middle of all this legal chaos.
This level of legal and political pressure, it must have caused chaos across the entire system, not just for SAVE.
It absolutely did. The year 2025 was it was defined by this system-wide administrative turmoil. We saw Congress trying to step in with things like the Repayment Assistance Plan or RAP being enacted.
But the actual government agencies, the infrastructure itself, just couldn't keep up.
It was fundamentally struggling. We have confirmation that the Department of Education actually had to temporarily suspend forgiveness under IBR in July of 2025 before restarting it in October.
Imagine you're just months away from having your loans forgiven after 20 years, and you get that notice.
It's terrifying. That cycle of hope and then withdrawal just creates massive distrust.
And the most basic function, just applying for a plan, even that started to fail.
That points directly to the application backlogs in late 2025. The source material makes it clear that this was made worse by these high-level political efforts to restructure or even close parts of the Department of Education.
So the political fights in Washington were having a direct impact on whether or not you could fill out a form online.
A direct impact. It resulted in periods where applications were just unavailable, like the freeze from February 18th to March 26, 2025. It just shows that if the infrastructure can't process the requests, the policy itself, no matter how great it sounds, is functionally useless.
It's not just about the rules, it's about whether the system can actually deliver on them.
Precisely.
All this volatility just shows how important it is for borrowers to be proactive.
Yeah.
So let's shift to the practical side. How does someone figure out what they qualify for, and how do they make sure they're on the right track, especially if they're aiming for something like public service loan forgiveness?
Right. The first step always is knowing exactly what kind of loans you have. We know direct loans are the main currency for IDR now, but a lot of people still have older types of loans.
You mean things like the old Federal Family Education Loan, FFEL program loans, and Federal Perkins loans.
Exactly. If you have those, you can't just sign up for SAVE or IBR. You have to take an extra step.
Which is consolidation.
Consolidation is the key. You have to consolidate those old FFEL and Perkins loans into a new direct consolidation loan. Once you do that, that new loan becomes eligible for all the modern IDR plans. It's the essential bridge from the old system to the new one.
So consolidation is the answer for those old loans, but we have to circle back to the parent PLOS loan problem one more time, because that's where this strategy hits a wall, right?
It's the ultimate parent PLOS caveat, yes.
Correct.
We have to be really clear. Parent PLOS loans are strictly excluded from IBR and PAYE. And while consolidation is the fix for other old loans, for parent PLOS loans, it only gets you so far.
It only makes them eligible for ICR.
It only opens the door to ICR, which is often the least generous plan. They remain locked out of IBR, PAYE, and the better parts of SAVE even after you consolidate. It forces so many of those parent borrowers into the plan with the highest payment percentage.
Okay, so assuming a borrower has figured out their loan types and consolidated if they need to, what's the next step?
The first place to go is the online repayment estimator.
On the student aid website.
Yep. You can use that to get a really good estimate of what your monthly payment would be under all the different plans. But, and this is a really important distinction, it can only estimate your eligibility.
To make it official, you have to talk to your loan servicer.
You have to contact your loan servicer directly. They are the ones who can formally determine if you qualify.
And if you're listening and you don't even know who your servicer is,
you go to the National Student Loan Data System.nslds.ed.gov. That's the official government portal where you can find out who holds your loan.
Okay, so once you're ready to actually apply, what's the process like now? Is it still a mountain of paperwork?
It's gotten so much better. The goal has been to move everything online. You can submit the whole income-driven repayment plan request electronically now.
And you can link it directly to the IRS, right?
Yes, that's the key improvement. You can consent to have your tax info, your AGI, transferred directly from the IRS into your application. It cuts down on errors, it's faster, and it helps people stay enrolled.
That's great if you have a job and you file taxes. But what about someone who's unemployed or has zero income? It can be hard to prove a negative.
That is a crucial provision they built in. If you currently have no income, you can self-certify that fact. You don't need to try and find pay stubs that don't exist. You just attest that your income is zero.
Which makes it much easier to get that $0 monthly payment you're entitled to.
Exactly. It provides that critical relief right when you need it most.
Now, for a huge group of people, teachers, nurses, government workers, the end goal isn't 20 or 25-year forgiveness. It's public service loan forgiveness, or PSLF. And you cannot get PSLF without being on an IDR plan.
The connection is mandatory. They are two halves of the same whole. The PSLF program promises forgiveness after 10 years of public service work and, critically, 120 qualifying monthly payments.
And that phrase, qualifying payments, is where IDR comes in.
That is the precise intersection. To make sure your payments count toward that 120, you must be repaying your loans under one of the income-driven plans, like IDR or SAVE. Payments you make on the standard plan, for example, do not count toward PSLF.
So if you're a public servant, understanding IDR isn't just helpful, it's the absolute bedrock of your entire debt strategy.
It is. You cannot succeed at PSLF without succeeding at IDR first.
To really understand just how big these changes are, we need to zoom out a bit. I mean, this whole idea of tying payments to income isn't new, is it?
Not at all. It's a policy idea that's been around for over half a century.
Really? How far back does it go?
The concept of income-contingent repayment was formally proposed in the U.S. all the way back in 1971. So for 50 years, policymakers have known there was this structural problem, that flat payments don't work when incomes fluctuate.
And what's interesting is it seems to have had support from both sides of the aisle over the years.
It has. It's been championed by politicians on the left and the right. Everyone sort of sees it as this essential safety valve to prevent mass defaults during a recession or just, someone loses their job. It's a way to keep the system from completely breaking.
But the first actual plan didn't become law until the 90s.
Right. The very first version, the ICR plan we talked about, was signed into law by President Clinton in 1993 and rolled out in July 1994. And since that day, there has been a very clear, very consistent trend.
Okay.
Every single IDR plan that has come since, IBR, PAYE, REPAYE, and now SAVE, has offered more and more favorable terms for borrowers.
Usually by lowering that payment percentage or, more recently, by raising the amount of protected income.
Exactly. And that trend really picked up speed during the Obama administration.
Leading to REPAYE.
Yes. President Obama announced the changes in 2014 that led to the launch of REPAYE in December 2015. And that was really a critical moment. It was an effort to make a flexible repayment plan available to almost everyone, which set the stage for the mass adoption and the massive costs that we see today.
And that history isn't just about dates and laws, it's about actual dollars in people's pockets. We have some data that shows this perfectly.
It really illustrates the impact.
It's for a single hypothetical borrower. One person with a consistent adjusted gross income of $50,000, and we're using constant $20-$25 to compare across the eras.
This is the perfect way to see how those policy levers we talked about, the poverty threshold, the payment percentage, actually work.
So let's start at the beginning. Under President Clinton's original 1993 ICR plan, with its 20% payment rate, that borrower would have paid $572.50 a month.
That is a serious chunk of change, a huge monthly bill.
Then we jump forward to 2007, to the IVR plan under the Bush administration. The payment percentage dropped from 20% to 15%.
Right. And that one change alone caused the monthly payment to fall to $331.56. Just by lowering the percentage, they saved that person almost $250 a month.
Then came President Obama's 2015 REPAYE plan, and the percentage dropped again, this time to 10%.
And the payment dropped with it, down to $221.04 a month. You can just see this steady legislative march toward making payments more affordable.
And now we get to the Biden administration SAVE plan. And this is where both policy levers get pulled at once. You have the 10% payment, but you also have that huge shift in protected income from 150% to 225% of the poverty line.
The combination is just radical.
So what does that do to the monthly payment for our same person with a $50,000 AGI?
For that same exact person, their required monthly payment under SAVE for undergraduate loans plummets to just $61.62.
That is just a staggering drop from almost $600 a month under the first plan to just over $60 today.
For the same person with the same income and the same debt.
It just shows you that the entire game is in the details of that discretionary income formula.
It is everything.
But those huge savings for individuals, they obviously translate into huge expected costs for the federal government.
This is the macroeconomic dilemma, yes. And it's why we're seeing all the legal and political fights. The programs worked maybe too well, some would argue, and the adoption rate just exploded.
How fast did it grow?
The Department of Education data in our sources is just mind-boggling. The share of all direct loan dollars being repaid through IDR went up by 625% in just 4 years, from the 2011 group of borrowers to the 2015 group.
So everyone rushed into these plans.
It was a flood. And that rapid growth means the government now expects to lose a lot more money on these loans than it originally planned.
Because of the forgiveness on the back end.
Exactly. They calculate something called the subsidy cost, basically, the net loss they expect. And during that same 2011 to 2015 period, the total subsidy cost for IDR plans went up by 748%, from $1.4 billion to $11.5 billion.
And that exponential growth in the government's expected losses is the fuel for all the political fights we're seeing today.
It is the foundational reason for the lawsuits, the administrative pressure, and the attempts to block or restructure these programs. It's all about that bottom line.
And when you look at the total amount of loan relief that has actually been approved recently, the numbers are just astronomical. The Biden administration approved a total of $189 billion in cancellations for 5.3 million people.
The scale is unprecedented. And if you break that number down, the biggest piece, $78.5 billion, went to over 1 million people through public service loan forgiveness.
And that's a program that was famously broken for years.
Famously. Before this big administrative push, only about 7,000 people had ever been approved. So this was a massive course correction to fix a program that just wasn't working.
What about the IDR programs themselves?
That was the next biggest piece. $57.1 billion in cancellation came from what's called the IDR adjustment. That was for over 1.45 million borrowers.
And what was that adjustment for?
It was designed to fix decades of bad record-keeping and administrative errors by the loan servicers. To give you some context, before that adjustment, only about 50 people had ever gotten forgiveness through IDR. It just shows how broken the tracking was.
50. Wow.
50. And then another $5.5 billion went to people who were already on the new Say VE plan.
And the rest of that $189 billion was for other targeted relief programs.
Yes. Billions more went to people who were defrauded by their schools or whose schools closed down, and to borrowers who were totally and permanently disabled. It all just underscores that IDR is now the primary vehicle for forgiving federal student debt on a massive scale.
So we have covered a huge amount of ground here. We've been through a true legislative thicket. For you, the listener, what are the critical takeaways from all of this?
I think there are 3 big ones.
Okay. First, IDR is not just some niche option anymore. It has become a necessary core mechanism for managing student debt in a world of high costs and, volatile incomes.
Second, and this is probably the most important practical point, the single biggest thing that determines your payment is that definition of discretionary income. That policy shift from 150% to 225% of the poverty line under Save-Off-Roan is everything. It's the reason payments have fallen so dramatically for so many people.
And third, and this is the warning, you have to understand that the current administrative landscape is incredibly volatile.
It is.
The legal blocks on Save-A-Toy, the temporary freezes on forgiveness, the application backlogs.
Mm-hmm.
It all means that if you're relying on these programs, you have to be hypervigilant. You have to monitor your account constantly.
Yeah, if these programs keep growing at this rate with hundreds of billions in expected costs and a 600+% increase in enrollment, the question of stability is it's unavoidable.
It is. And that leaves us with a final thought for you to think about. Given the vast multi-billion-dollar costs of IDR, the fragility of the system we saw with the 2025 freezes, and the constant political pressure for even more debt relief, how will the U.S. government balance those political demands with the practical, financial, and administrative stability needed to actually run these incredibly complex programs over the long term?
That tension between the political promise and the administrative reality is what's going to define student debt policy for years to come.
We really encourage you to start your own verification process today.
Yes. Go check your loan status at the National Student Loan Data System nslds.ed.gov -- and use that repayment estimator online. See where you stand under these confusing but potentially life-changing repayment options.
Until next time, stay well informed.
And keep diving deep.